Welcome to A Great Cooker. I'm Sophronia. Today I'm going to show you a very easy version of a homemade Hawaiian pizza. And we're going to use our bread machine so it does all the heavy lifting for us. These are all of our ingredients to start out in the bread machine. In my bread machine, we start with the wet ingredients. So here's 1.5 cups of warm water. And then we have 3 tablespoons of oil. This one is olive oil. And sugar counts as a wet ingredient. This is 1/2 tablespoon of white sugar. For the dry ingredients, I'm going to use half wheat flour and half white flour, but you can use all white flour. So this is 2 cups of whole wheat flour. And this is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now, you don't have to use bread flour, but it will give you best results. So since I don't currently have any bread flour, I'm gonna add to this 4 teaspoons of Vital Wheat gluten. And then for salt, to give it a good amount of flavors, this is a total of 2 teaspoons of salt. And I'm using regular active yeast, so this is approximately 2¼ teaspoons of yeast. Go ahead and put your bread pan in your machine. And I need to put this on the dough setting. So let me see. On mine, the dough setting is 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to take 1.5 hours. Press start. We're going to check on this in about a minute or 2 and see how it's coming together. Okay, it's been a couple minutes. Let's see what we're working with here. Okay, let me scrape it down and see if I might have to add a little water, but let me scrape it first and see if it comes together on its own without me adding anything. Let's see. It does seem to be slightly dry. See all that in the bottom? That's where it's not connected to the dough. So I'm going to add a bit more water. Really only going to add maybe like a teaspoon or 2 at a time. And then I'll kind of mix it around and see if that works. That might have been it. Let's see. There's no loose flour, and it's an actual dough ball, and that'll look even better the more that it needs. So we're good to go for now. The bread machine finished, and the dough rose very nicely. We'll go ahead and deflate that. Now's a good time to go ahead and preheat your oven. I preheat mine to 425 degrees. But it really depends on how hot your oven gets. You can bake a pizza anywhere between 400 and 450 degrees, depending on your oven. We used 4 cups of flour, so that means that we can divide this dough in half and get to really nice sized pizzas. As a matter of fact, if you roll them out thin enough, you can get to like 14 to 16 inch pizzas. I'm gonna try to even this one up a little bit. That one's a little bigger. I'll add that over here. I don't want my pizza dough, my pizza crust to stick, so I'm going to use some parchment paper. You don't have to. You could, if you think yours is going to stick, you could just grease the pan as well. And then just stretch your dough out until you get it. I do mine until I can get it pretty as far out on the pan as I can. I usually start by using my hands, and then might move on to a rolling pin to finish it up. That pan has a lip on the end, and so it's hard to use a rolling pin. I'm gonna add some flour to this because it's starting to get a bit sticky. Not a lot, I'm just gonna sprinkle some on. This is with clean hands. I washed my hands before I started messing with the dough. That should work. I've got my dough to the consistency that I want it, so I'll just go ahead and put it back on the pizza pan. Since it's a Hawaiian pizza, instead of pasta sauce, we're gonna use barbecue sauce. Now, I'm very sparing with this when I use this on pizza because most of the barbecue sauce that I buy is very sweet, and that sweetness can overpower the rest of the pizza. So whereas with pasta sauce or pizza sauce, I would use a lot more. On this one, I'm just using just enough to where the pizza's not gonna be dry. And that is so that the flavors will balance out nicely. So this is about as much sauce, barbecue sauce, that I'm going to use. If you have a bit of Parmesan cheese, you can shake that on your pizza. I try not to use too much because Parmesan cheese can be very salty. But I do think that this adds to the flavor. I think it adds to the flavor of homemade pizza. So I always try to shake a little bit right after I put down the sauce. Next is the mozzarella. It just depends on the family members. I have some people in the family, they like a lot of cheese. I like a lot of cheese to stretch as far as possible. So when I make the pizzas, I probably use a bit less cheese. But I feel like as long as I get good coverage, as long as the cheese is gonna melt, and you won't really see pockets of sauce, then I think that'll work. I'm going to use these frozen chicken breast patties. These patties, as you can see, frozen, but these will work just fine. After consulting with some teenagers, it was decided that 3 patties would probably be enough for this pizza. It's still frozen, but I'm just gonna use a sharp knife and cut this into some nice sized pieces. If I had the nuggets like I usually do, depending on the size of those, I usually cut them in half or maybe in thirds. We'll see if I wind up using all of this on one pizza or not. I went ahead and drained a can of pineapple chunks, and so now just kind of alternately add the chicken and pineapple. Wow, I think it's gonna wind up being 2 out of these 3 patties that I use. Let me add some pineapple in here with my other hand. I definitely need more chicken. As you can see, I still have that 1 patty left. I'll figure out what to do with that, but this is what our pizza is looking like so far. And we're gonna get this in the oven, 425 degrees. Here's the pizza right out of the oven. This actually wound up cooking at 425 degrees for about 15 minutes. and at about the 7-minute mark, it was turned halfway. The crust looks really good. My kids don't like a really crispy crust, but if you wanted your crust to be a bit crispier on the bottom, you could cook it for maybe 3 to 5 more minutes.